Hollyworth O'Hara.
At length, the woman hoped
And
that
he had
God
3
was about to
daughters.
grant her desire.
One
These
time when
people
the
had a
king
little
was away
window
from
at the
home,
back of their house from which
the
a
eldest
splendid
daughter
garden
had a
could be
thought
seen,
that she'd
which
like
was
to be
full of
married.
the most beautiful flowers and
So
herbs.
she went up in the castle,
It was, however, surrounded by
put
a
on the
high
cloak
wall,
of darkness
and no
which
one
her
dared
father
to go
had,
into it because it belonged to an
and
enchantress
wished for the most
who had
beautiful
great
man under the
power
sun,
and was dreaded by all
as
the
a
world.
husband for herself.
One day the woman was standing
She
by
got
this
her
window,
wish,
and looking down
for scarcely
into the
had she
garden
put off
when
the
she saw a
cloak,
bed which
when
was
there
planted
came,
with the most
in a
beautiful
golden coach
rampion,
with 4
a
horses,
herb also known
2
as
black
Rapunzel,
and 2 white,
and it looked so
the
fresh
finest
and green
man
that
she had
she
ever laid
longed
eyes
for it.
on.
She quite pined away
and took her
and
away.
began to look pale and miserable.
Then
Then
the
her
second
husband was
daughter
alarmed
saw
and
what had
asked,
happened to her
"What
sister.
ails you, dear wife?"
She put on the cloak of darkness,
she replied, "If I can't
and wished
eat
for
some
the
of
next
rampion,
best man
which
in the
is
world as a
garden
husband."
behind our house, I shall
She
die."
put off the cloak, and straightway there came,
who loved her,
in a golden
thought,
coach with 4
"Sooner
black
than let
horses,
your wife die, bring her
a
some of the
man
rampion
nearly as good as
yourself.
the first,
Let it cost
and took
what
her
it
away.
will." At twilight,
The third
he
sister
clambered down over the wall
put on
into
the
the
cloak,
garden of the enchantress,
and wished for the
hastily clutched
best
a
white
handful of
dog in the
rampion
world.
and took it to his wife.
Presently he came,
She at once made herself
with
a
1
salad
man
of it
attending,
and ate it greedily.
in a golden coach,
It
and 4
tasted
snow-white
so good
horses,
to her, so very good,
and took the
that
youngest
next
sister
day
away.
She longed for it 3 times as much as
When
before.
the king came home,
If he was to have
the
any
stable
rest,
boy told
her
him what had
husband must
happened
once
while he was
more
gone.
descend into the garden.
He was
In the
enraged
gloom
beyond
of
measure
evening, therefore,
when he
let
heard
himself
that his
down
youngest
again.
daughter had wished
But
for a
when
white
he had
dog,
clambered down the wall, he
and
was
gone off with
terribly
him.
afraid, for he saw the enchantress standing before
When
him.
the first man brought his
"How
wife
can
home,
you dare?"
he
said
asked,
she with angry look. "Descend
"In
into
what
my
form
garden
will you have
and
me in the
steal my
daytime?
rampion like a thief?
as I am now
You
in the
shall
daytime,
suffer for it."
or as I am now at night?"
answered he. "Let mercy
As you
take
are
the
now
place of justice.
in the daytime,"
I only made
she
up my
replied.
mind to do it out of necessity.
So the first
My
sister had
wife
her
saw your
husband as a man
rampion
in the
from
daytime,
window, and
but
felt
at
such
night
a
he
longing
was a
for
seal.
it that she would have died if she had not got some to eat.
The second man
Then
put the same
enchantress
question
allowed
to
her
the middle
anger to be
sister,
softened, and said to him,
and got the
"If
same
the case
answer.
be as you say, I will allow
So the
you
second
to take
sister
away
had
with
her
you as
husband
much
in the same
rampion
form as
as
the
you
first.
will. Only I make one
When the third
condition.
sister came
You
to where the
must
white
give
dog
me the
lived,
child which your wife
he asked
will
her,
bring into the world.
"How will
It
you
shall
have me
be
to be in
well
the
treated,
daytime,
and I will care for
as
it
I am now
like
in
a
the day,
mother."
or as I am now at
The
night?"
man in his terror consented to
"As you are
everything.
now in the day,"
And when the woman was brought to bed,
she said,
the
to his
enchantress
surprise.
appeared at once, gave the child the name
So
of
the youngest
Rapunzel,
sister's husband
and took
was a
it
dog
away
in the
with her.
daytime,
Rapunzel grew
the most
into the
beautiful
most
of men at
beautiful
night.
child under the sun.
After a time,
When she was
the
12
third
years
sister
old,
had a
the
son,
enchantress shut her into a tower,
and one
which
day,
lay in a forest, and
when
had
her
neither
husband was
stairs
going out
nor
to
door,
hunt,
but quite at the top was
he
a little
warned
window.
her that if anything should
When
happen,
the
the
enchantress
child
wanted to go in,
not
she
to
placed
shed a
herself
tear
beneath
on
it
that
and cried,
account.
"Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down
While
your
he was
hair
gone,
to me."
a great gray crow
Rapunzel had
that used to haunt
magnificent
the
long
place
hair, fine
came
as
and
spun
carried the
gold.
child away when
And
it
when
was
she
a
heard
week
the
old.
voice of the enchantress, she unfastened
Remembering
her
the
braided
warning,
tresses, wound
she
them
shed
round
not a
one
tear
of the
for the
hooks
loss.
of the window above, and then the hair fell
All went on as
20
before,
ells down,
till another
and the
son was
enchantress
born.
climbed up by it.
The husband
After a
used to
year
go
or
hunting
two,
every
it came
day,
to pass that the king's son
and again
rode
he
through
said
the
she
forest
must not shed a
and
tear
passed
if anything
by the
happened.
tower. Then he heard
When the
a
child
song,
was a week old,
which was so charming that
a
he
great
stood
gray
still
crow
and listened.
came and bore him away.
This was Rapunzel,
But the mother did
who
not
in her
cry
solitude
or
passed
drop a
her
tear.
time in letting her sweet voice
All went well
resound.
till a daughter was born.
The king's son wanted
When she
to
was a
climb
week
up to
old,
her and looked
the
for
crow
the door of
came
the tower,
and swept
but
her
none
away.
was to be found.
This time,
He rode home.
the mother dropped one
But
tear
the singing
on a
had
handkerchief,
so deeply touched his heart
which she took out of her
that
pocket,
every day
and then
he
put
went
back
out into
again.
the forest and listened
When
to
the
it.
husband came home
Once,
from hunting,
when he was thus standing behind a
and
tree,
heard what the crow had
he
done,
saw that an enchantress
he asked
came
the wife,
there, and he heard how
"Have
she
you shed
cried,
tears this time?"
Rapunzel, Rapunzel,
"I have shed just
let
one,"
down your
said she.
hair to me." Then he was very angry, let down the braids of her hair, for he knew what harm she had done by dropping that one tear. If that is the ladder by which one mounts, soon after their father invited the three sisters to visit him, and the next day when it began to be present at a great feast in their tower and cried, Rapunzel. They sent messages, each from her own place, to me, that they would come. Immediately the hair fell down, and the king was very glad at the prospect of seeing his children. Was terribly frightened, when a man, the queen was such grieved, as her eyes had never yet beheld, and thought it a great disgrace that her youngest daughter had no one to come home with friend, and told her that his heart had been so stirred that it had let him have no rest. The white dog was worried that the king wouldn't leave him inside with the company. Then Rapunzel lost her fear, but would drive him from the castle to the yard. And she saw that he was young and handsome. And that the dogs outside, he will love me more than old Dame Gothel, leave a patch of skin on his back. And she said yes, and laid her hand in his, and would tear the life out of him. She said, I will willingly go away. The youngest daughter comforted him. I do not know how to get down. There is no danger to you, skein of she whispered, every time that you come. For wherever I am, weave a ladder with it. And wherever you go, ready, I'll follow, and you take care of you. Me on your horse. When all was ready for the feast at the castle, he should come to her every evening, and the company were assembled. The old woman came by day. The king attempted to banish the white dog. Nothing of this, until once Rapunzel said to her, but the youngest daughter would not listen to her father. How it happens that you are would not let the white dog out of her sight. Then the young king's but kept him near her at the feast with me in a moment, and divided with him the food that came to herself. The enchantress. What do I hear you say? When the feast was over, I thought I had separated you and all the guests had gone, and yet you have the three sisters went to their own rooms in the castle. In anger, she clutched Rapunzel's late in the evening, wrapped them twice round her left hand, seized a pair of scissors stole in to see what was in her daughter's room. Snap! They were cut off. They were all asleep at the time. Lay on the ground, and she saw by the side of her youngest daughter that she took poor Rapunzel, the most beautiful man she had ever laid eyes on, in great grief and then misery. She went to where the other two daughters were sleeping. She cast out Rapunzel, however, and there the enchantress, instead of the two men who brought them to the feast, to the hook of the window were two seals. And when the king's son came and fast asleep, Rapunzel, and loudly snoring, let down your hair to me. The queen was greatly troubled at the sight of the seals. The king's son ascended. When she and the cook were returning, finding his dearest they came upon the shed skin of the white enchantress, who gazed at him with she caught it up as she went, looks, and threw it into the kitchen fire. She cried mockingly, you would fetch your dearest. Was not 5 minutes in the fire when it gave a crack that woke not only all in the castle, has got it, and will scratch but all in the country for miles around. Rapunzel is lost to you. The husband of the youngest daughter sprang up. The king's son was beside himself. He was very angry, and in his despair he leapt down from the tower. He escaped with his life. If I had been able to spend 3 nights with you under your father's roof, then he wandered. I should have got back my own form again for good. Ate nothing but roots and could have been a man both in the day and the night. Lament and weep over the loss of his dearest wife. Thus he rose from the bed in misery for some years, ran out of the castle, came to the desert, and away he went with the twins, as fast as ever his 2 legs could carry him. A boy and a girl lived in wretchedness. He was this way all that night and the next day. And it seemed so familiar to him that he went towards it. But he couldn't leave the wife. And when he approached, Rapunzel followed from the castle fell on his neck and was after him in the night. 2 of her tears wetted his eyes, and they grew clear and never lost sight of him. And he could see with them as before. In the afternoon he turned to his kingdom, where he was joyfully and told her to go back to her father. And they lived for a long time afterwards, but she would not listen to him. At nightfall, they came to the first house they had seen since leaving the castle, who was loved by everyone who looked at her. He said, but most go inside and stay in this house till morning, and there was nothing that she would not. I'll pass the night outside where I am. Once the wife went in, and the woman of the house rose up, which suited her so well that she would gave her a pleasant welcome. So she put a good supper before her. Little Red Cap. She was not long in the house. One day her mother said to her, when a little boy came to her knee and called her mother, here is a piece of cake and a bottle of wine.
The woman of the house told the child to go back to his place.
She is ill and weak,
and not to come out
and
again.
they will do her good.
Here are a pair of scissors
before it gets hot,
said the woman of the house to the king's daughter.
Walk nicely and
they will serve you well.
And do not run off the path.
Whatever ragged people
or you may
see,
and break the bottle.
If you cut a piece off their
and
rags,
then your grandmother will get
that
nothing.
moment,
and when
they
you
will
go
have
into
new
her
clothes
room,
of cloth
don't forget
of gold.
to say good morning, and don't peep into every corner.
She stayed
before
that
you
night,
do it.
for she had good welcome.
I will take great care, said
Next
little
morning,
Redcap
when she
to
went
her
out,
mother, and gave her
husband
hand
said,
on it.
"You'd better go
The
home now
grandmother
to your
lived
father.
out in the wood, half a league from the village.
I'll not go
and
to my
just
father
as
if I have to
Little
leave
Redcap
you,"
entered the wood,
said she.
A wolf met her.
So he went on.
Redcap did not know what
she
a
followed.
wicked creature he was, and was not at all
It
afraid
was
of
that
him.
way all the day
Good
till
day,
night
little
came.
Redcap, said he. Thank you
And at
kindly,
nightfall,
wolf.
They saw another house
Whither
at
away
the foot
so
of the
early,
hill.
little Redcap? To
And
my
again,
grandmother's.
The
What have you
husband
got in your
stopped
apron?
and said,
Cake and wine.
go
Yesterday
in.
was baking day.
"I'll
So
sleep outside
poor
till
sick
morning."
grandmother is to have something good.
The woman
to
of
make
the
her
house
stronger.
gave her a good welcome.
Where does your grandmother live, little Redcap?
After she had eaten
A
and
good
drunk,
quarter of a league farther on in the wood.
a little boy
Her house
came out of
stands
another
under the
room,
3 large oak trees.
ran to
the
her
nut
knee,
trees are just below,
and
"You
said,
surely must know it,"
"Mother."
replied little Redcap. The wolf
The
thought
woman
to
of the
himself,
house sent
"What
the
a
boy
tender
back to
young
where he had
creature.
come from,
What a nice plump mouthful,"
and told
She
him
will
to
be
stay
better
there.
to eat than the old woman. I must act
Next
craftily
morning,
so as to catch both.
when the princess was going
so
out to
he
her
walked
husband,
for a short time by the side of little
the
Redcap.
woman gave her a comb,
And then
and
he
said,
said, "See, little Redcap,
"If you meet any
how
person
pretty
with
the
a
flowers
diseased and
are
a
about
sore
here.
head,
Why do you not
and
look
draw
round?
this comb over it 3
I believe,
times,
too, that you do not hear how
the head
sweetly
will be
the
well,
little birds are singing. You
and
walk
covered with the most
gravely
beautiful
along
golden
as if you were
hair
going to
ever seen."
school, while everything else out here in
She
the
took the
wood
comb and went
is
out to
merry.
her husband.
Little
"Leave me
Redcap
now,"
raised her
said
eyes,
he,
and when she saw the sunbeams dancing
"and go
here
back
and
to
there
your own
through the
father.
trees, and pretty flowers growing everywhere,
I will
she
not,"
thought,
said
"Suppose
she,
I take grandmother a fresh
"but I will follow
nosegay.
you while I have
that
the
will
power."
please her too. It is so
So they
early
went
in the
forward
day
that
I
day,
shall still get there
as
in
on the
good
other
time."
two.
And so she
At
ran from the
nightfall,
path into
they
the
came
wood
to a
look
third
for
house
flowers.
at the foot of a hill,
And whenever she had picked one,
where the
she
princess
fancied that she
received
saw
a good
still
welcome.
prettier one farther on.
After
and
she had
ran
eaten
after it,
supper,
and so got
a little
deeper
girl
and
with
deeper
only
into
one
the
eye
wood.
came to her
Meanwhile, the
knee
wolf
and
ran
said,
straight to the grandmother's house,
"Mother."
and knocked at the door.
The princess began to
"Who is
cry
there?"
at sight of the child,
"Little Redcap," replied the wolf,
thinking that
"She is
she
bringing
herself
cake and wine.
was the
Open
cause
door.
that it had but one eye.
Lift the latch."
Then she put her
called out
hand
the
into her
grandmother.
pocket,
"I am too weak,"
where she
and
kept the
cannot get
handkerchief on which she had dropped the
The
tear.
wolf lifted the latch.
When the gray
The
crow
door
carried
sprang
her
open,
infant away,
and without saying a word, he went straight to the
she had
grandmother's
never used
bed
the handkerchief
and
since that
devoured
day,
her.
for there was
Then
an
he
eye on
put
it.
on her clothes,
She opened the
dressed himself
handkerchief
in her
and
cap,
put the eye in the girl's
laid
head.
himself in bed.
It
and
grew
drew
into
the
the
curtains.
socket that minute,
Little Redcap,
and the
however,
child
had
soar
been
out of
running
it,
about picking
as well as out
flowers,
of the other eye.
And when she had gathered so many that she
And
could
then
carry no more,
the woman of the house
she remembered
sent the
her
little one
grandmother
to bed.
and set out on the way to her.
Next
She
morning,
was surprised to find the
as the
cottage
king's
door
daughter
standing
was
open,
going out,
and when she went into the room,
the
she
woman
had
of the
such a
house
strange
gave her a
feeling that
whistle
She said to herself,
and
"Oh
said,
dear, how
whenever
uneasy
you
I
put
feel
this
today,
whistle to your
and at other
mouth
times I like being with
and blow on
grandmother
it,
so much." She called out,
all the
"Good
birds
morning,"
of the
but
air
received
will
no
come to you
answer.
from every
So she went to
quarter
the bed
under
and
the
drew
sun.
back the curtains. There lay her grandmother
Be careful
with
of
her
the
cap
whistle,
pulled far over
as
her
it may
face,
serve you
and
greatly.
looking very strange. "Oh, grandmother,
Go back to your father's
she said,
castle,"
"What big
said
ears
the husband
you have.
when she came to him.
The better to hear you with, my
For I
child,"
must leave you
was the
today.
reply. "But grandmother,
They
what
went
big
on
eyes
together
you have,"
a few
she
hundred
said.
yards,
"The better to see you with, my dear."
and then sat on a green
"But
hillock.
grandmother, what large hands you have."
And he told the wife,
"The better
"Your
to
mother
hug
has
you
come
with."
between us.
"Oh, but grandmother,
But for her,
what a
we might have
terrible
lived together
big mouth
all our
you
days.
have. The better to eat
If I had
you
been
with."
allowed to pass 3 nights
And
with you in your
scarcely
father's
had the wolf
house,
said this, then with one bound
I should have
he was
got
out
back
of
my
bed
form of a
and
man,
swallowed up Redcap.
both in the
When the wolf
daytime
had
and
appeased
the
his
night.
appetite, He lay down again in the bed.
The queen of Tirnanoga
and began to
the
snore
land of youth,
very loud.
enchanted
The huntsman was just
and put
passing
on
the
me a
house
spell,
and thought to himself, how the
that unless
old
I could
woman
spend 3
is
nights
snoring.
with a wife
I must
under
just
her
see
father's
if
roof,
she wants anything.
I should bear the
So he
form
went into
of
the
a
room,
white dog,
and when he came to
one
the bed,
half of my time.
he saw that the wolf
But if the
was
skin of the
lying
dog
in it.
should be burned before the
Do
3
I
nights were
find
over,
you here, you old sinner?
I
said
must
he.
go down to her
I have
kingdom
long sought you.
and marry the queen herself.
Then just as he was going to fire at him, it occurred
'tis
to
to
him
her
that the wolf might
I
have
am going
devoured
today.
the grandmother, and that she might still be saved.
I have
so he
no
did not
power
fire,
to stay,
but took a pair of
and
scissors
I must leave you.
and began to cut open the stomach
So
of the sleeping
farewell.
wolf. When
You'll
he had
never
made
see
2
me again on
snips,
the upper
he
earth.
saw the little red cap shining.
He left her
and then
sitting
he
on the
made 2
mount,
snips more, and
went
the
a
little
few
girl
steps forward
sprang
to
out,
some
crying,
bulrushes,
"Ah, how frightened I
pulled
had
up
been,
one, and
how
disappeared
dark
in
it
the
was
opening
inside the wolf."
where the rush
and
had
after
been.
that the aged grandmother came out alive also.
She stopped there,
but scarcely
sitting
able
on the
to
mound,
breathe.
lamenting
Redcap, however,
till evening,
quickly fetched
not knowing
great
what to do.
stones with which they filled the wolf's belly.
At
And
last
when he
she
awoke,
bethought herself,
he wanted to run away,
and going
but
to
the
the
stones
rushes,
was so heavy that he collapsed
pulled up
at
a stalk,
once
went down,
and fell dead.
followed her husband,
Then all
and
3
never
were
stopped
delighted.
till she came to the
The
lower
huntsman
land.
drew off the wolf's skin and went
After a
home with
while,
it.
she reached a
The
small
grandmother
house
ate
near
the
a splendid
cake and drank the
castle.
wine which Redcap had brought, and revived.
She went into the house,
But
and
Redcap
asked,
thought to herself,
could she stay there
as
till morning?
long as I live, I will
You can,
never by
said the woman of the
myself
house,
leave the path
and welcome.
to run into the wood.
Next
when my
day,
mother
the woman
has
of the
forbidden
house was
me to
washing
do
clothes. For
It
that was
also
how she
related
made a
that
living.
Once when Redcap was again taking cakes
The
to
princess
the old
fell
grandmother,
to, and
another
helped her
wolf
with the
spoke to
work.
her and tried to entice her from the path.
In the course of that day,
Redcap, however,
the
was
queen
on her
of
guard,
Tirnanoga
and went
the husband of the
straight forward
princess
on her
were
way,
married,
and told her grandmother that she had met
near the
wolf,
castle,
and
and
that
not
he had
far
said
from the
good
washerwoman's,
morning to her. But
lived
with
a
such a wicked
henwife
look in his
with
eyes
2 ragged
that if they
little
had not
daughters.
been on the public road, she was certain he would have eaten
One of
her
them
up.
came around the washerwoman's
"Well,"
house to play,
said the grandmother, "we will
the
shut
child
the door,
looked so poor,
that he may not
and her
come
clothes
in."
were so torn and dirty,
Soon afterwards, the
that the
wolf
princess
knocked
took pity on her,
and cried,
and cut the
"Open
clothes
the
with the
door,
scissors
grandmother.
which she had.
I am little Redcap,
That
and am
moment,
bringing you some cakes."
the most beautiful dress of
But
cloth
they
of
did
gold
not speak or open
ever
the door.
seen on woman
So the
or child
graybeard
in that
stole
kingdom
twice or thrice round
was
the
on the
house,
henwife's
and
daughter.
at last jumped on the roof.
When she saw
intending
what
to
she
wait
had on,
until Redcap
the child
went
ran
in the
home to her
evening,
mother,
and then
as
to
fast as
steal
ever
after
she
her
could go.
and devour her in the darkness.
Who gave you that dress?
But the grandmother
asked the
saw
henwife.
what was in his thoughts. In front
A
of the
strange
house
woman
was a great
that is in that
stone
house
trough.
beyond.
So she
said
said
the little
to the
girl,
child,
pointing
"Take
to the
pale
washerwoman's
Redcap.
house.
I made some sausages
The
yesterday,
henwife went straight
so
to the
carry
queen of
water in which
Tirnanoga
I boiled them to
and
the
said,
trough." Redcap
"There is a
carried
strange
until the
woman
great trough
in
was
the
quite
place
full. Then the
who will be
smell of
likely
the sausages
to take
reached
your
the wolf,
husband
and
from
he
you.
sniffed and peeped down, and
Unless
at
you
last
banish her
stretched out
away
his neck
or
so
do something
far
to her.
that he could no longer keep his footing,
For she
and
has a
began
pair
to
of
slip
scissors different
and
from
slipped
anything ever
down
seen
from
or
the
heard
roof
of in this
straight
country.
into the great trough.
When the
and
queen
was
heard
drowned.
this, she
But
sent word
Redcap
to the
went
princess
joyously
that,
home,
unless the
and
scissors
no
were given
one
up to
ever
her
did
without
anything
delay,
to harm her,
she would have the head
again.
off her. The princess said she would give up
By
the
a great
scissors
forest
if the
dwelt
queen
a
would let her
poor
pass one
woodcutter
night with her husband.
his wife and his 2 children. The
The
boy
queen
was
answered
called
that she was
Hansel,
willing
and the
to give
girl
her
Gretel.
the one night.
He had little to bite and to break.
The princess
and once,
came
when
and
great
gave up the
dearth
scissors
fell on the land,
and
he
went
could
to
no
her own
longer
husband.
procure even daily bread.
But the queen had given him
now,
a drink,
when he thought over
and he
this
fell
by
asleep
night in his bed,
and never
tossed
woke
about
till
in his
after the princess
anxiety,
had gone in the morning.
He groaned and said to his wife,
Next day,
"What is to become
another
of us?
daughter of the
How are
henwife
we to feed
went
our
to the
poor
washerwoman's
children
house
when
to
we
play.
no longer have anything even for
She
ourselves?"
was wretched looking,
"I'll tell you
her
what,
head
husband,"
being covered with
answered the
scabs
woman.
and sores.
"Early tomorrow morning, we will
The princess
take the children
drew the
out
comb
into the
3
forest
times
to where it
over
is
the
the
child's
thickest.
head,
There we will light a
cured it,
fire for them, and give
and
each
covered
of them
it
one
with
more piece
beautiful
of bread,
golden hair.
and then we will go to our work.
The little
and
girl
leave them
ran
alone.
home and told her mother
They will not find the
how
way
the
home
strange
again,
woman had drawn the
and we
comb
shall
over
be
her
rid of
head,
them.
cured it, and
No,
given her
wife,
beautiful golden
said the
hair.
man. I will not do that.
The hen
How
wife
can
hurried
I bear
off to
to
the
leave
queen
my
and
children
said,
alone in the forest?
"That strange
wild
woman has a
animals would
comb
soon
with
come
wonderful
and tear
power
them
to
to
cure
pieces.
and give golden hair.
Oh, you fool!"
and
said
she'll
she.
take your husband
Then we
from
must
you unless
all
you banish
four
her
die of
or
hunger.
take her life."
You may as well plane the planks for our coffins.
The queen
And she
sent
left him
word
no
to the
peace
princess
until
that
he
unless she
consented.
gave up the comb,
But I feel very
she
sorry
would have her
for the
life.
poor children all the same.
The princess
the man.
returned as answer that she
The
would
two
give up
children
the
had
comb
also not been able to sleep
if she
for
might
hunger,
pass one
and
night
had
with
heard
the
what their
queen's husband.
stepmother had said to their father.
The queen was
Gretel
willing
wept bitter tears
and gave her
and
husband
said
a
to Hansel,
draft as before.
"Now all is over
When the
with
princess
us."
came, he was
"Be
fast
quiet,
asleep
Gretel," said Hansel,
and did not
"Do
waken
not
till
distress
after
yourself.
she had gone in
I
the
will
morning.
soon find a way to help us."
On the third day,
And when the old
the
folks had
washerwoman
fallen asleep,
and the princess
he got up,
went out
put
to
on
walk,
his little coat,
and the
opened
first
door
daughter of
below,
the hen wife with
and
them.
crept outside.
When they
The
were
moon
outside the
shone
town,
brightly,
the princess
and the
put the
white
whistle to
pebbles
her
which
mouth
lay in front of
and
the
blew.
house glittered like real
That
silver
moment,
pennies.
The birds of the
Hansel
air flew
stooped
to her
and
from
stuffed
every
the little
direction
pocket
in
of his
flocks.
coat with as many as he could get in.
Among them was a bird of
Then he
song
went back
and new
and
tales.
said to Gretel, "Be comforted, dear little
The princess
sister,
went to
and
one
sleep
side
in
with the
peace.
bird.
God will not
What means
forsake
can I
us."
take,
And he
asked
lay down
she,
again in his
against
bed.
the queen to get back my
When
husband?
day dawned, but before the sun had
Is it
risen,
best to kill
the
her?
woman came and awoke
And
the
can
two
I do
children,
it?
saying, "Get up, you
It is
sluggards.
very hard,
We are
said the
going
bird,
into the forest
to kill her.
fetch wood." She gave
There
each
is
a
no
little
one
piece
in
of
all
bread
Tir
and
na
said,
Nog
"There
who
is
is able
something
to
for your
take her
dinner,
life,
but do not
but
eat
her
it up
own
before
husband."
then, for you will get nothing
Inside a
else.
holly tree in front of the castle is a ram.
Gretel took the bread under her apron,
In the ram a
as
duck.
Hansel had the pebbles in
In
his
the
pocket.
duck an egg.
Then they all set
And
out
in that
together
egg
on the way to
is
the
her
forest.
heart and life.
When they had walked a short time, Hansel
No
stood
man can
still
cut
and
that
peeped
holly
back
tree
at
but
the
her
house
husband.
and did so again and again. His father
The
said,
princess blew the
"Hansel,
whistle again.
what are you looking at there and staying
A
behind
fox and a
for?
hawk came to her.
Pay attention, and do not forget
She
how
caught
to
and
use
put
your
them
legs."
into 2 boxes,
"Our father,"
which the
said
washerwoman
Hansel,
had with her,
"I'm looking
and
at
took
my
them to
little
her new
white
home.
cat, which is sitting up on the roof,
When the hen
and
wife's
wants to
daughter
say
went
goodbye
home,
to me." The
she
wife
told her
said,
mother about the
"Fool,
whistle.
that is not your little cat.
Away
That is the
ran the hen
morning
wife
sun
to the
which
queen
is shining
and
on the
said,
chimneys."
"That
Hansel,
strange woman
however,
has a
had
whistle
not been looking back
that
at
brings
the cat,
together
but
all
had
the
been
birds of the
constantly
air,
throwing one of the white pebble stones out
and
of
she'll
his
have
pocket
your
on the
husband
road.
yet, unless you take
When
her
they
head.
had reached the middle of the forest, the father said,
I'll take the
"Now,
whistle from
children,
her.
pile
Anyhow,"
up some wood,"
said the queen.
"and I will light a fire that you may not be
So she
cold."
sent for the whistle.
Hansel and Gretel gathered brushwood
The
together.
princess
as
gave
high
answer
as a
that
little
she would
hill.
give up the whistle
The brushwood
if she might
was
pass
lighted,
one night
and
with
when
the
the
queen's
flames
husband.
were burning very high, the woman said, "Now,
The queen
children,
agreed
lay
and gave him a
yourselves
draught
down by
as
the
on the
fire
other
and
nights.
rest. We will go into the forest
He was
and
asleep
cut some wood.
when the princess came,
When we have done,
and when
we
she
will
went
come
away.
back and fetch you away."
Before
Hansel
going,
and Gretel
the
sat by
princess
the
left a
fire,
letter
and
with
when
his
noon
servant
came,
for the queen's
each
husband,
ate a little piece of bread, and as they
in
heard
which
the
she
strokes
told
of the
how
wood
she had
axe,
followed
they
him to
believed that
Tir
their
na Nog,
father was near.
and had
It
given
was
the
not
scissors,
the axe, however,
the comb,
but a
and the
branch
whistle,
which he had fastened to a withered
to
tree,
pass
which
3
the wind
nights
was
in his
blowing
company,
backwards and forwards.
but had not spoken
And as
to
they
him,
had been sitting such a long
because the
time,
queen had given
their
him
eyes
sleeping
closed
draughts,
with fatigue, and they fell
that the
fast
life
asleep.
of the queen
When
was
at
in
last
an egg,
they awoke, it was
the
already
egg
dark night.
in a duck,
Gretel began to
the
cry
duck
and said,
in a ram,
"How are we to get out of the forest
the ram
now?"
in a holly
But Hansel
tree
comforted her
in
and
front
said,
of the castle,
"Just wait a little until the
and that
moon
no
has
man
risen,
could
and
split
then we
the
will
tree
soon
but
find
himself."
the way." And when the full moon
As soon
had
as he
risen,
got the letter,
Hansel took
the
his
husband
little
took
sister
an
by the
axe
hand and followed
went
the
to the
pebbles
holly
which
tree.
shone like newly coined silver pieces.
When he came to the
and
tree,
showed them the way.
he found the princess
They walked
there
the
before
whole
him,
night long,
having the 2
and by
boxes
break of
with
day
the fox
came
and the
once
hawk
more
into
into
them.
their father's house.
He struck the tree
They
a few
knocked
blows,
at the door, and when the
it
woman
split
opened
open,
it and saw
and
that
out
it was
sprang the
Hansel
ram.
and Gretel, she said, He ran
"You
scarce
naughty
20
children,
perches before the
why
fox
have you
caught him.
slept so long in the forest?
The fox tore him
We
open.
thought you were never
Then the
coming
duck
back at
flew
all."
out.
The father,
The duck
however,
had not flown
rejoiced,
15 perches,
for it had cut him to the
when
heart
the hawk
to leave
caught
them
and
behind
killed her,
alone.
smashing
Not long
the egg.
afterwards, there was once more
That instant,
great dirt
the queen of
throughout
Tir
the
Nan
land,
Og died,
and the children heard their mother saying
the husband
at night to their
kissed
father,
and embraced his faithful
"Everything
wife.
is eaten again. We
He
have
gave a
one
great
half
feast,
loaf left,
and when the feast
and
was
that
over,
is the end.
he burned the hen
The
wife with her
children
house,
must go. We will take them
built
farther
a palace
into
for
the
the
wood,
washerwoman,
so that they will not
and
find
made his
their way
servant
out
secretary.
again. There is no other
They
means
never
of
left
saving
Tir Nan Og,
ourselves."
and are living there
The
happily
man's
now.
heart was heavy, and he
And
thought,
so may we live here.
"It would be better for you to share the last mouthful with your children." The woman, however, would listen to
In the
nothing
heart of
that he had
Ireland,
to say, but
where the
scolded
mists
and
weave
reproached
through
him.
the hills like a
He who
dance of
says
spirits,
A must say B.
there lay a
likewise,
village,
and as he
untouched
had
by
yielded
time.
the first time, he had to do
This
so
village
a
had a
second time
secret.
also. The children,
A
however,
pact
was
made
still
long
awake
ago
and had
with the
heard
Fae,
the conversation.
the
When
mysterious
the old folks
and
were
capricious
asleep,
beings
Hansel
of the other
again got
world,
up and wanted to go out and pick
a
up
realm
pebbles as he
parallel
had done
to our
before.
own,
But the woman had locked the door,
veiled
and
in
Hansel could not
enchantment
get
and
out.
shadow.
Nevertheless, he comforted his
This
little
ancient
sister
pact
and said, "Do
decreed the
not
promise
cry,
that the
Gretel.
Fae would
Go to
protect
sleep
the villages
quietly.
from
The
misfortune.
good God will help us."
In return,
Early in the morning,
they were to
came the
abide by
woman
one rule,
and took the children out of
never
their
to
beds.
venture into the forbidden
Their
forest
piece of
that
bread
lay at
was
the edge
given
of the
to them,
village,
but it was still
shrouded
smaller
in
than the
perpetual
time before.
twilight. After
On
dusk,
the way into the forest, Hansel crumbled his in his
the
pocket,
agreement had
and
held for
often stood
generations,
still and threw a morsel on the
passed
ground.
down through the ages like
Hansel,
a sacred
why do you stop
torch.
and look round? Said the father. Go on.
Its origins lost to the
I am
mists
looking
of
back
time,
at my little pigeon, which is sitting on
and
the
the
roof
villagers
and wants
lived
to
in
say
harmony
goodbye to
with
me,"
the land
answered
and its
Hansel.
unseen guardians.
"Fools," said the woman. "That is not your little pigeon.
But as the years
that is
turned,
the morning sun that is shining on
the
the
seeds
chimney."
of curiosity and the innate
Hansel,
restlessness of
however,
human
little
nature
by little, threw all the
began to
crumbs on the
stir
path.
within the
The
hearts
woman
of the
led the
villages,
children still deeper into the forest,
whispers
where they
of
had
the wonders
never in their lives
and
been
dangers
before.
of the forbidden
Then a
forest
great fire was
grew
again
into
made,
tales of
and the mother
enchantment
said,
and temptation.
"Just sit there, you children,
The forest
and when
called
you
to
are
them,
tired, you
a
may
siren
sleep a
song
little.
of the unknown,
We are going into the
promising
forest to cut
secrets
wood,
and adventures
and in the
beyond
evening
their
when we are
wildest
done,
dreams.
we will come and fetch you away."
A young villager named Amon,
When it was noon,
with
Gretel
hair as
shared her
dark
piece
as the
of bread
raven,
with Hansel, who
and
had
eyes
scattered
filled
his by
with the
way.
spark of curiosity,
Then they fell asleep,
found
and
himself
evening
drawn
passed,
to the
but
forbidden
no
forest.
one came to the poor children.
He had
They
heard
did
the
not
tales
awake
of the
until it was
Fae,
dark night,
of their
and
beauty
Hansel comforted
and
his
their
little
wrath.
sister and said, "Just
And
wait,
something
Gretel,
deep within
until
him
the moon rises,
yearned
and
to
then we shall
uncover
see the crumbs
truth.
of bread which I have strewn about.
One evening,
They will show
under
us
the
our way
cloak
home again."
of twilight,
When the moon
Amon
came,
ventured
they
into
set
the
out,
forest.
but they found no
The
crumbs.
trees whispered
For the
secrets
many thousands
in a
of
language
birds which
lost
fly
to men,
about in the woods and fields,
and the deeper he
had
walked,
picked them all up.
the more the line between
Hansel
the worlds
said to
seemed to
Gretel,
blur.
"We shall soon find
After
the way."
hours of wandering,
But they did not
he began
find
to
it.
wonder if perhaps
They
he should
walked
turn
the whole
back,
night and all the next day,
having
too,
found
from
nothing
morning
of the
till
Fae
evening.
and the ancient
But they
oaths,
did not
but a
get out of the
beguiling
forest,
sense of
and
awe
were very
unease.
hungry, for they had nothing to eat but 2 or
It was
3
then
berries
that he
which
saw
grew
her,
on the ground. And as
a
they were
Fae
so
maiden,
weary that their legs would carry them
bathing
no longer,
in a moonlit
they
glade,
lay down beneath a tree,
her skin
fell
glowing with
asleep.
fairy light.
It was
her
now
presence
3
commanding,
mornings since
yet
they had
ethereal,
left their father's house. They
like a
began
vision
to walk
crafted
again,
from
but
moonlight
they
and
always
shadow.
came deeper into the forest. And if
The
help
moment
did
she
not come
sensed
soon,
Amon's
they
approach,
must die of hunger
she
and
turned
weariness.
towards him, her
When it
movements
was
graceful,
midday, they saw a beautiful
her
snow-white
eyes
bird sitting
shimmering
on a bough,
pools of the
which
deepest
sang
green,
so delightfully that they stood
reflected a
still and
world
listened to it.
unseen by
And
mortal
when its song
eyes,
was over, it spread its wings
capturing
and
the
flew
very
away
essence of
before
the
them.
other world.
And they followed it until they reached a little
An
house
enigmatic
on the
smile
roof of which
played
it
upon her
alighted.
lips.
And when they
And
approached
in that
the little
smile,
house, they saw
Amon
that it was
sensed
built
a
of
blend
bread
of
and covered
curiosity
with cakes,
and amusement,
but that the windows were of clear sugar.
as if she found his bewilderment
"We will set to work
both
on
expected
that," said Hansel,
and
"and have a
delightfully
good
intriguing.
meal. I will eat a bit of the roof."
She
and you,
introduced
Gretel,
herself
can
in a
eat some
voice
of the
that
window.
carried the
It will
melody of
taste
the
sweet.
forest.
Hansel reached up
"I am
above
Aisling,"
and broke off a
she
little
said,
of the roof
her
to try
words
how
a
it
gentle
tasted,
echo
and
in the
Gretel
still
leant
air.
against the window and nibbled at the panes.
"Guardian of these woods,
Then a soft
and
voice
daughter
cried
to the
from
Fae
parlor,
King."
"Nibble, nibble,
As
gnaw.
days turned into weeks,
Who is nibbling
Eamon found
at my
himself
little
returning
house?"
to the glade to meet
The
Aisling
children
in
answered,
secret,
"The wind, the wind,
breaking the ancient
the
pact with every
heaven-born
nightfall,
wind,"
drawn by an
and went
inexplicable
on eating
bond
without
that seemed to grow
disturbing
stronger with
themselves.
every encounter.
Hansel, who liked the taste of
Aisling,
the
too,
roof, tore down
found herself
a great piece of
intrigued
it,
by this
and
human's
Gretel
genuine
pushed out
wonder
the
and
whole
respect
of
for the
one
natural
round
world,
window pane, sat down
traits seldom
and
seen
enjoyed
in those
herself
from beyond the
with it.
Fae realm.
Suddenly the door
Their
opened,
conversations,
and a
once
woman
cautious,
as old as the hills, who
burst
supported
into
herself
exchanges
on
of
crutches,
tales
came
and
creeping
laughter,
out. Hansel
of
and
human
Gretel were so
dreams and
terribly
Fae
frightened
magic
that they let fall what
they
had
shared
in their
stories
hands.
under the moonlit sky.
The old woman, however,
Aisling teaching
nodded her
Eamon
head
about
and
the ancient
said,
magics of the
"Oh,
other
you
world that
dear
wove
children,
through the fabric
who has
of the
brought
forest.
you here? Do come in and stay
Battles
with me.
fought and
No harm
alliances
shall happen
forged
to you." She took
of
them
magic
both by the
that
hand
could bend
and
the
led
very
them into her
fabric
little
of reality.
house. Then good food was set before
Eamon
them.
in turn
Milk and
spoke about the
pancakes
human
with
world,
sugar, apples,
its
and
joys
nuts.
and sorrows,
Afterwards, two pretty little
its
beds
fleeting
were covered
nature,
with clean white linen,
and the
Hansel
dreams
and Gretel
that
lay
propelled
down
it
in
forward,
them and thought they were in
He
heaven.
described the beauty
The
of
old
the mundane,
woman had only pretended to be
seen
so
through
kind.
eyes
She
unaccustomed
was in
to the
reality
wonders
a
of the
wicked
Fae,
witch who lay in
providing
wait for
Aisling
children,
a
and had
glimpse
only
into a
built
life
the little house of
governed
bread
by
in
time
order to entice
and
him there.
change.
When a child fell into
And
her
yet,
power,
with
she
each
killed
visit,
it, cooked
a
and ate
sense
it,
of unease
and that
began
was
to
a
grow
feast
within
day
him.
with her.
The
Witches
forest
have
seemed
red
darker,
eyes and cannot
the
see
mists
far,
thicker,
but they have a
and
keen
whispers
scent
of discontent
like the beasts,
stirred among
and
the
are
trees.
aware when human beings
The villagers
draw near.
noticed the change as well.
When Hansel and Gretel came
Crops
into her
began to
neighborhood,
fail,
she laughed
livestock
with malice
grew
and said
ill,
mockingly,
and an
"I
unspoken
have them.
fear
They
settled
shall
over
not
the
escape
village.
me again."
The elders
Early
spoke
in the
in
morning,
hushed
before the
tones
children
of the
were
broken
awake,
pact,
she was already up,
and the wrath
and
of
when
the
she
Fae.
saw both of them sleeping,
One
and
night,
looking so
as
pretty,
Eamon made his
with
way
their
to the
plump and
glade,
rosy cheeks,
he
she
found
muttered to
Aisling
herself,
waiting for him with a
"That will
solemn
be a
expression.
dainty mouthful." Then
She revealed the
seized
truth
Hansel with
that
her
she had
shriveled
kept
hand,
hidden.
carried him into a little
With every
stable,
visit,
and
the
locked
barrier
him in
between
behind
the
a
worlds
grated door.
weakened,
Scream
and dark
as he might,
entities
it
from
would
the
not
other
help
world
him.
sought to break
Then she
through,
went to Gretel,
drawn
shook
by
her till
Eamon's
she
human
awoke,
energy.
and cried, "Get up,
The twist of
lazy
fate
thing.
was
Fetch
cruel.
some water, and cook
Eamon's
something
love for
good for your
Aisling
brother.
and his desire
He
to
is in the
uncover the
stable
mysteries of the
outside,
Fae
and is to be
had
made
endangered
fat.
his own village.
When he is fat, I
The
will
only way
eat
to
him."
mend the rift and protect both
Gretel
worlds
began to weep bitterly,
was for
but it
Eamon
was
to
all
forget
in vain,
Aisling and the
for she
Fae,
was forced to do what the wicked
to never
witch
venture
commanded.
into the forest again.
And now the best food was
A
cooked
powerful
for poor
spell
Hansel,
would seal his
but
memories
Gretel
and the
got
breach,
nothing but
at a
crab
great
shells.
cost.
Every morning,
The love
woman
they
crept
shared
to the
would be
little stable and
sacrificed,
cried,
and
"Hansel,
Aisling would
stretch
return
out
to the
your
other
finger
world,
that I may feel
never
if
to
you
meet
will soon
Eamon
be
again."
fat."
With a heavy
Hansel,
heart,
however, stretched out a little
Eamon
bone
agreed,
to her, and the old woman,
as Aisling
who had
whispered
dim
the spell,
eyes, could not see it.
Eamon's
and thought it was
memories of
Hansel's
her and the
finger,
Fae began
and was
to
astonished
fade
that there was no way of
like
fattening
mist
him.
under the morning
When
sun.
4 weeks had gone by,
He found
and
himself
Hansel still
standing at the
remained
edge of the
thin,
forest,
she was seized
the
with
urge to
impatience
explore
and would
gone.
not wait any longer.
A vague
Now
sense
then,
of
Gretel,
loss his
she
only
cried to the
companion.
girl, "Stir yourself and bring some water.
The village
Let
slowly
Hansel be
recovered.
fat or lean.
The crops
Tomorrow
flourished
I will
once
kill
more,
him and cook
peace
him."
was restored.
Ah, how the poor little
Eamon,
sister
with
did
no
lament
recollection of
when
the
she had to
events,
fetch the water, and how her
continued his
tears
life,
did flow down her cheeks.
occasionally pausing
"Dear
at the
God,
forest's
do
edge with
help
an
us,"
unexplainable
she
ache in
cried.
his heart.
If the wild
The
beasts
pact
in the
between the
forest had but
villages and the
devoured us,
Fae
we
was
should
mended,
at any rate have died
but the
together.
forbidden forest
Just
remained,
keep your noise to yourself,
a reminder
said
of the
old
delicate
woman.
balance
It won't
between
help you at
curiosity
all.
and caution.
Early in the morning, Gretel had to
seen
go out and hang up
and
the
the
cauldron
unseen.
with the water and light the fire.
The human heart
"We will bake first," said
and
the
the
old
mysteries
woman.
of the
"I
Fae.
have already heated the oven and kneaded the dough." She pushed poor Gretel out to the oven, from
Long
which
ago,
flames of fire were
in the
already
lush
darting.
green valleys of ancient
"Creep
Ireland,
in," said the witch,
there reigned
"and
a
see if it
mighty
is properly
king
heated, so that
named
we can
Lear.
put the bread in." And
he was known far and wide for his wisdom,
she intended to shut
generosity,
and let her
fair
bake
rule.
in it. And then
King Lear was blessed with a wife named Iowit,
but Gretel saw what she had in
whose
mind,
beauty was renowned
said,
throughout the
I
land.
do not know how I am to do it.
Together,
How do
they
I
had
get
4
in?
children:
Silly goose, said
Fionnuala,
the old woman.
Iod,
The door
Fiacre,
is big
and
enough.
Con.
Just look.
Their
I can
laughter
get in
echoed through the
myself.
halls of the royal palace,
And she crept up,
filling
and
their
thrust her
parents'
head
hearts
into
with
the oven.
joy.
Then Gretel gave her a
happiness,
push that
as
drove her
fleeting
far
as
into
the
it,
morning mist,
and shut the iron door,
soon turned
and
to
fastened
sorrow.
the bolt. Oh, then
Tragedy
she began to
struck
howl
when Oy,
quite horribly.
beloved wife and mother,
But Gretel ran
fell
away,
gravely ill,
and the godless
and
witch
passed
was
away.
miserably burnt to death.
King Lear was
Gretel,
overcome
however,
with grief,
ran like lightning
and the kingdom
to Hansel,
mourned alongside
opened
him.
his little stable and cried,
In time,
Hansel,
however,
we are saved.
the king's advisors
The
urged
old
him to
witch
remarry,
is dead. Then
believing it would
Hansel
bring
sprang
stability
like a
and
bird
happiness
from its
back
cage
to the realm.
when the door is opened. How they
Reluctantly,
did rejoice
King Lear
and
agreed,
embrace each other, and
hoping
dance
for a
about
motherly
and
figure
kiss
to
each
care
other.
for his motherless
And as
children.
they had no longer any need to fear her,
Aoife, a
they
woman
went
of
into
great
the witch's
beauty,
house,
but
and
with
in
a
every
heart
corner
tainted by
there
envy and
stood
ambition,
chests full of
became the
pearls
new queen.
and jewels.
From the
These
moment
are
she entered
far
the palace,
better than pebbles,
a
said
darkness seemed
Hansel,
to settle
and
upon
thrust
its walls.
into his pockets whatever could be got
Jealousy
in.
gnawed at
And
her
Gretel
heart
said,
as she witnessed the
I
love
too
between King
will
Lear
take
and his
something
children,
home with me, and filled her
a
pinafore
love that
full.
reminded her
But
of what
now
she herself
we must
lacked.
be off, said Hansel.
As
that
the
we may
days
get out
passed,
of the witch's forest.
Aoife's resentment grew,
When they had walked for 2
twisting
hours,
her thoughts into
they came
dark
to a
and
great
treacherous
stretch
paths.
of water. We cannot cross,
Consumed by jealousy,
said Hansel. I
she
see no
sought to rid
footplank
herself of the
and
king's
no
children,
bridge. And there is
seeing them
also
as
no
obstacles
ferry,
to her own
answered
ambitions.
Gretel, but a white duck is swimming
One
there.
fateful
If
day,
I ask
she
her,
took the
she will
children to
help
a
us
secluded
over.
lake,
Then she cried,
promising them a day of
"Little
adventure
duck,
and
little
play.
Duck, dost thou see
But her
Hansel and
intentions
Gretel are
were
waiting
far
for
from
thee?
innocent.
There's never a plank
With
or
whispered
bridge in sight.
incantations and
Take us
malevolent
across
magic,
on thy back so white.
she cast a powerful
The
spell
duck
upon
came
them,
to them, and Hansel seated
transforming
himself
them
on
into
its back,
swans of
and
exquisite
told his
beauty.
sister to sit by him.
The children,
No,
bewildered
replied
and
Gretel,
frightened,
that will be too heavy
found
for the
themselves
little duck.
trapped in
She shall
alien
take
forms,
us across, one
their human
after
bodies
the other.
replaced by sleek feathers
The good
and
little
graceful
duck
wings.
did so, and when they were once safely
Despite
across
their
and had
newfound
walked
plight,
for a short time,
they remained bound
the
by
forest
their
seemed
love
to be
for each
more
other
and, more
and their
familiar
father.
to them, and at length
For
they saw
900
from afar
years,
their father's house.
They glided
began
upon
to
the
run,
shimmering waters
rushed
of
into
Loch
the parlor,
Duravarach,
and threw themselves round
their wings
father's
catching
neck.
the golden light
The
of
man
dawn and
had
dusk.
not known one
They
happy
faced
hour
storms
since he had left
and
the children in the
tempests,
forest.
hunters
The woman,
and predators,
however, was dead.
yet their spirits
Gretel
remained
emptied
unbroken.
her pinafore until pearls and precious stones
As the centuries
ran about
passed,
the room, and
their
Hansel
longing
threw
for their
one
father grew
handful
stronger,
after another out of his
their
pocket
hearts
to
aching
add
for
to
the
them.
warmth of his embrace.
Then all anxiety was at an end.
Meanwhile,
And they lived
King
together
Lear,
in perfect happiness.
unaware of their fate,
My tale is done.
searched the
There
length
runs
and
a
breadth
mouse.
of the kingdom for his
Whosoever
lost
catches
children.
it may make himself
grief
a big fur
unyielding.
cap out of it.
That tale of sorrow and endurance
One
spread
fine
throughout
evening,
the land,
a young princess put on her
carried
bonnet
by
and
the
plumes
whispered winds
and went out to take a walk
and
by
murmuring
herself
streams.
in a wood. And when she came to a cool
It became
spring
a
of
story
water
of
that rose
love,
in the midst
tested
of it,
by
she
adversity,
sat herself down to rest a while.
of innocence
Now she had a
betrayed by
golden
envy.
ball in her hand, which was her favorite
Finally,
plaything.
after
and she was
9
always
centuries
tossing
had
it up into
passed,
the air
the
and
swans
catching it
heard
again as it
whispers
fell.
of a prophecy.
After a time, she threw it up so high
A prophecy
that, she
that
missed
spoke
catching
of a
it as it
Christian
fell,
monk
and the ball
whose
bounded
blessing
away
could break the
and
spell
rolled
that bound
along
them.
upon the ground, till at last it
With
fell
renewed
down
hope
into
in
the
their
spring.
hearts, they
The
set
princess
out
looked
across
into
the
spring
vast
after her
expanse
ball,
of the sea
but
of
it was
Moyle,
very deep, so deep that she
guided
could
by
not
the
see the bottom
distant
of it.
shores
Then
of the
she
Isle
began
of
to
Glora.
bewail her loss, and said,
At long
"Alas,
last,
if I could
they
only
reached
get
the
my
tranquil
ball again,
shores,
I would give all my fine
where a humble
clothes and
monastery
jewels and
stood
everything
bathed
that I have
in the
the
golden
world."
light of dawn.
Whilst she was speaking, a frog put its
There
head out of the
they
water
found the monk,
and said, "Princess,
a gentle
why do you
soul,
weep so bitterly?"
whose
"Alas,"
eyes shone
said
with
she,
kindness
"what can you
and
do for
compassion.
me, you nasty frog? My
With words
golden
of
ball
blessing
has fallen into
and
the
prayers
spring."
of salvation.
The frog said, "I want
The
not
monk
your
broke
pearls
the
and
enchantment
jewels and
that
fine
held them
clothes,
captive.
But if you will love me, and
As
let
the
me
first
live with
light
you
of
and
dawn
eat from off
touched
your
their
golden
feathers,
plate, and sleep upon
The
your
swans
bed.
felt
I will
a
bring you
warmth
your
spreading
ball again.
through their bodies.
What nonsense, thought the
A sensation
princess. This
long
silly
forgotten.
frog is talking. He can never even get out of the
Their
spring
avian
to visit me,
forms
though
melted
he may
away,
be able to get my bowl for me,
revealing their
and
true
therefore I will
selves
tell
once
him he
more.
shall have what he asks. So
But
she said
time
to the
had
frog,
taken its toll,
well, if you will bring me my ball,
and
I
they
will do all
emerged
you ask.
as old
Then
and
the frog
weary
put his head
as
down
the ancient
and
oaks
dived deep
that
under
shaded
the
the
water.
monastery
And after
grounds.
a little while he came up again with the ball
With
in his
tears
mouth
of joy
and
and
threw it on the edge
sadness
of the
mingling
spring.
on their cheeks.
As soon as the young princess
They embraced
saw her
each
ball,
other one
she
last
ran
time,
to pick it up, and she was so
their hearts
overjoyed
heavy
to have
with
it
the
in her
weight of
hand
9
again, that she
centuries
never
worth
thought
of
of the
memories.
frog, but ran home with it as fast
And
as
as
she
the
could.
sun rose
The frog
high
called
in
after
the
her,
sky,
"Stay, princess, and
casting
take me
its
with you as you
golden
said."
glow upon the
But she
world
did not
below.
stop to hear a word.
They closed their
The next
eyes
day, just as the
and
princess
surrendered
had sat
to the
down
eternal
dinner,
embrace
she
of
heard a
sleep.
strange noise. Tap,
Their
tap,
spirits,
flash,
freed
flash,
from the
as if something
confines
was
of
coming up the
mortal
marble
flesh,
staircase. And soon
ascended
afterwards
to the
there was a
heavens,
gentle knock at the door,
where they were
and the little
reunited
voice
with their
cried out and
beloved
said,
mother.
"Open the door, my princess
Together,
dear. Open the door
they
to
soared
thy true
among
love
the stars,
here, and mind the words
their voices
that thou and I
blending
said
with the celestial
by the fountain
chorus in a
cool
song
in the
of
greenwood
everlasting
shade."
peace
Then
and
the
love.
princess ran to the door and opened
And
it.
so,
And there
the
she
tale
saw
of the
frog,
children of
whom she
Leah
had quite
parsed
forgotten.
into legend.
At this sight she was sadly
A testament to the
and shutting
enduring
the door
power
as
of
fast
love,
as she could, came back
the
to her
destructive
seat.
force of
The
jealousy,
king, her father, seeing
and the
that
resilience
something
of
had
the human
frightened her,
spirit
asked her
in
what
the
was the
face
matter.
of adversity.
"There is a nasty frog," said she, "at the door that lifted my ball from
As
me
we
out
close
of the
this
spring
chapter,
this morning. I told him
on
that
the
he
charming
should live with
world
me
of
here,
Irish
thinking
folk
that he could
tales
never get out of the spring.
and the
But there
beguiling
he is
fae,
at the door, and he wants
let
to
their
come
mysterious
in. While
magic
she was speaking,
stay with
the
you.
frog knocked again at the door.
Allow
and
their
said,
stories to
"Open
gently
the door,
guide
my
your
princess
dreams
dear.
tonight.
Open the door to thy true
Rest
love
well,
here, and mind
and may
the
you
words
wake
that thou
with
and
a
I
touch
said
of enchantment
by the
in your
fountain
heart."
cool in the greenwood shade. Then the king said to the young princess, "As you have given your word, you must keep it. So go and let him in." She did so, and the frog hopped into the room, and then straight on, tap, tap, plash, plash, from the bottom of the room to the top, till he came up close to the table where the princess sat. "Pray lift me upon chair," said he to the princess, "and let me sit next to you." As soon as she had done this, the frog said, "Put your plate nearer to me, that I may eat out of it." This she did, and when he had eaten as much as he could, he said, "Now I am tired. Carry me upstairs, and put me into your bed." And the princess, though very unwilling, took him up in her hand, and put him upon the pillow of her own bed, where he slept all night long. As soon as it was light, he jumped up, hopped downstairs, and went out of the house. "Now then," thought the princess, "at last he is gone, and I shall be troubled with him no more." But she was mistaken, for when night came again she heard the same tapping at the door, and the frog came once more and said, "Open the door, my princess dear. Open the door to thy true love here, and mind the words that thou and I said, by the fountain cool, in the greenwood shade." And when the princess opened the door, the frog came in, and slept upon her pillow as before, till the morning broke. And the third night he did the same. But when the princess awoke on the following morning, she was astonished to see, instead of the frog, a handsome prince, gazing on her with the most beautiful eyes she had ever seen, and standing at the head of her bed. He told her that he had been enchanted by a spiteful fairy, who had changed him into a frog, and that he had been fated so to abide till some princess should take him out of the spring, and let him eat from her plate and sleep upon her bed for 3 nights. "You," said the prince, "have broken his cruel charm, and now I have nothing to wish for but that you should go with me into my father's kingdom, where I will marry you and love you as long as you live." The young princess, you may be sure, was not long in saying yes to all this, and as they spoke a gay coach drove up with 8 beautiful horses, decked with plumes of feathers and a golden harness, and behind the coach rode the prince's servant, faithful Heinrich, who had bewailed the misfortunes of his dear master during his enchantment so long and so bitterly that his heart had well nigh burst. They then took leave of the king, and got into the coach with 8 horses, and all set out, full of joy and merriment, for the prince's kingdom, which they reached safely, and there they lived happily a great many years. By the side of a wood, in a country a long way off, ran a fine stream of water, and upon the stream there stood a mill. The miller's house was close by, and the miller, you must know, had a very beautiful daughter. She was, moreover, very shrewd and clever, and the miller was so proud of her that he one day told the king of the land, who used to come and hunt in the wood, that his daughter could spin gold out of straw. Now this king was very fond of money, and when he heard the miller's boast his greediness was raised, and he sent for the girl to be brought before him. Then he led her to a chamber in his palace where there was a great heap of straw, and gave her a spinning wheel and said, "All this must be spun into gold before morning, as you love your life." It was in vain that the poor maiden said that it was only a silly boast of her father, for that she could do no such thing as spin straw into gold. The chamber door was locked, and she was left alone. She sat down in one corner of the room, and began to bewail her hard fate, when on a sudden the door opened, and a droll-looking little man hobbled in and said, "Good morrow to you, my good lass. What are you weeping for?" "Alas," said she, "I must spin this straw into gold, and I know not how." "What will you give me," said the hobgoblin, "to do it for you?" "My necklace," replied the maiden. He took her at her word, and sat himself down to the wheel, and whistled and sang, round about, lo and behold, reel away, straw into gold." And round about the wheel went merrily. The work was quickly done, and the straw was all spun into gold. When the king came and saw this, he was greatly astonished and pleased, but his heart grew still more greedy of gain, and he shut up the poor miller's daughter again with a fresh task. Then she knew not what to do, and sat down once more to weep, but the dwarf soon opened the door and said, "What will you give me to do your task?" "The ring on my finger," said she. So her little friend took the ring, and began to work at the wheel again, and whistled and sang, round about, lo and behold, reel away, straw into gold, till long before morning, all was done again. The king was greatly delighted to see all this glittering treasure, but still he had not enough, so he took the miller's daughter to a yet larger heap and said, "All this must be spun tonight, and if it is, you shall be my queen." As soon as she was alone, that dwarf came in and said, "What will you give me to spin gold for you this third time?" "I have nothing left," said she. "Then say you will give me," said the little man, "the first little child that you may have when you are queen." "That may never be," thought the miller's daughter, and as she knew no other way to get her task done, she said she would do what he asked. Round went the wheel again to the old song, and the mannikin once more spun the heap into gold. The king came in the morning, and finding all he wanted was forced to keep his word, so he married the miller's daughter, and she really became queen. At the birth of her first little child she was very glad, and forgot the dwarf and what she had said, but one day he came into her room where she was sitting playing with her baby, and put her in mind of it. Then she grieved sorely at her misfortune, and said she would give him all the wealth of the kingdom if he would let her off, but in vain, till at last her tears softened him, and he said, "I will give you 3 days' grace, and if during that time you tell me my name, you shall keep your child." Now the queen lay awake all night, thinking of all the odd names that she had ever heard, and she sent messengers all over the land to find out new ones. The next day the little man came, and she began with Timothy, Ichabod, Benjamin, Jeremiah, and all the names she could remember, but to all and each of them he said, "Madam, that is not my name." The second day she began with all the comical names she could hear of, Bandy-legs, Hunchback, Crookshanks, and so on, but the little gentleman still said to every one of them, "Madam, that is not my name." The third day, one of the messengers came back and said, "I have traveled 2 days without hearing of any other names, but yesterday, as I was climbing a high hill among the trees of the forest, where the fox and the hare bid each other good night, I saw a little hut, and before the hut burnt a fire, and round about the fire a funny little dwarf was dancing upon one leg, and singing, 'Merrily the feast I'll make, today I'll brew, tomorrow bake, merrily I'll dance and sing, for next day will a stranger bring, little does my lady dream, Rumpelstiltskin is my name.'" When the queen heard this, she jumped for joy, and as soon as her little friend came, she sat down upon her throne, and called all her court round to enjoy the fun, and the nurse stood by her side with the baby in her arms, as if it was quite ready to be given up. Then the little man began to chuckle at the thought of having the poor child to take home with him to his hut in the woods, and he cried out, "Now, lady, what is my name? Is it John?" asked she. "No, madam." "Is it Tom?" "No, madam." "Is it Jemmy?" "It is not." "Can your name be Rumpelstiltskin?" said the lady slyly. "Some witch told you that. Some witch told you that," cried the little man, and dashed his right foot in a rage so deep into the floor that he was forced to lay hold of it with both hands to pull it out. Then he made the best of his way off, while the nurse laughed, and the baby crowed, and all the court jeered at him for having had so much trouble for nothing, and said, "We wish you a very good morning and a merry feast, Mr. Rumpelstiltskin." There was a man who had 3 sons, the youngest of whom was called Dummling, and was despised, mocked, and sneered at on every occasion. It happened that the eldest wanted to go into the forest to hew wood, and before he went his mother gave him a beautiful sweet cake and a bottle of wine in order that he might not suffer from hunger or thirst. When he entered the forest, he met a little gray-haired old man, who bade him good day, and said, "Do give me a piece of cake out of your pocket, and let me have a draught of your wine. I am so hungry and thirsty." But the clever son answered, "If I give you my cake and wine, I shall have none for myself. Be off with you." And he left the little man standing and went on. But when he began to hew down a tree, it was not long before he made a false stroke, and the axe cut him in the arm, so that he had to go home and have it bound up. And this was the little gray man's doing. After this, the second son went into the forest, and his mother gave him, like the eldest, a cake and a bottle of wine. The little old gray man met him likewise, and asked him for a piece of cake and a drink of wine. But the second son, too, said sensibly enough, "What I give you will be taken away from myself. Be off." And he left the little man standing and went on. His punishment, however, was not delayed. When he had made a few blows at the tree, he struck himself in the leg, so that he had to be carried home. Then Dummling said, "Father, do let me go and cut wood." The father answered, "Your brothers have hurt themselves with it. Leave it alone, you do not understand anything about it." But Dummling begged so long that at last he said, "Just go then, you will get wiser by hurting yourself." His mother gave him a cake made with water and baked in the cinders, and with it a bottle of sour beer. When he came to the forest, the little old gray man met him likewise, and greeting him said, "Give me a piece of your cake and a drink out of your bottle. I am so hungry and thirsty." Dummling answered, "I have only cinder cake and sour beer. If that pleases you, we will sit down and eat." So they sat down, and when Dummling pulled out his cinder cake, it was a fine sweet cake, and the sour beer had become good wine. So they ate and drank, and after that the little man said, "Since you have a good heart and are willing to divide what you have, I will give you good luck. There stands an old tree. Cut it down, and you will find something at the roots." Then the little man took leave of him. Dummling went and cut down the tree, and when it fell, there was a goose sitting in the roots with feathers of pure gold. He lifted her up, and taking her with him, went to an inn where he thought he would stay the night. Now the host had 3 daughters, who saw the goose, and were curious to know what such a wonderful bird might be, and would have liked to have one of its golden feathers. The eldest thought, "I shall soon find an opportunity of pulling out a feather," and as soon as Dummling had gone out, she seized the goose by the wing, but her finger and hand remained sticking fast to it. The second came soon afterwards, thinking only of how she might get a feather for herself, but she had scarcely touched her sister than she was held fast. At last the third also came with the like intent, and the others screamed out, "Keep away, for goodness' sake, keep away." But she did not understand why she was to keep away. "The others are there," she thought, "I may as well be there too," and ran to them. But as soon as she had touched her sister, she remained sticking fast to her. So they had to spend the night with the goose. The next morning Dummling took the goose under his arm, and set out, without troubling himself about the 3 girls who were hanging on to it. They were obliged to run after him continually, now left, now right, wherever his legs took him. In the middle of the fields the parson met them, and when he saw the procession he said, "For shame, you good-for-nothing girls, why are you running across the fields after this young man? Is that seemly?" At the same time he seized the youngest by the hand in order to pull her away, but as soon as he touched her he likewise stuck fast, and was himself obliged to run behind. Before long the sexton came by, and saw his master the parson running behind 3 girls. He was astonished at this, and called out, "Hi, your reverence, whither away so quickly? Do not forget that we have a christening today." And running after him he took him by the sleeve, but was also held fast to it. Whilst the 5 were trotting thus one behind the other, 2 laborers came with their hoes from the fields. The parson called out to them and begged that they would set him and the sexton free. But they had scarcely touched the sexton when they were held fast, and now there were 7 of them running behind Dummling and the goose. Soon afterwards he came to a city where a king ruled, who had a daughter who was so serious that no one could make her laugh. So he had put forth a decree that whosoever should be able to make her laugh should marry her. When Dummling heard this he went with his goose and all her train before the king's daughter, and as soon as she saw the 7 people running on, one behind the other, she began to laugh quite loudly, and as if she would never stop. Thereupon Dummling asked to have her for his wife, but the king did not like the son-in-law, and made all manner of excuses and said he must first produce a man who could drink a cellarful of wine. Dummling thought of the little grey man, who could certainly help him. So he went into the forest, and in the same place where he had felled the tree, he saw a man sitting, who had a very sorrowful face. Dummling asked him what he was taking to heart so sorely, and he answered, "I have such a great thirst, and cannot quench it. Cold water I cannot stand, a barrel of wine I have just emptied, but that to me is like a drop on a hot stone." "There I can help you," said Dummling. "Just come with me, and you shall be satisfied." He led him into the king's cellar, and the man bent over the huge barrels, and drank till his loins hurt, and before the day was out he had emptied all the barrels. Then Dummling asked once more for his bride, but the king was vexed that such an ugly fellow, whom everyone called Dummling, should take away his daughter, and he made a new condition. He must first find a man who could eat a whole mountain of bread. Dummling did not think long, but went straight into the forest, where in the same place there sat a man who was tying up his body with a strap, and making an awful face, and saying, "I have eaten a whole ovenful of rolls, but what good is that when one has such a hunger as I? My stomach remains empty, and I must tie myself up if I am not to die of hunger." At this Dummling was glad, and said, "Get up and come with me, you shall eat yourself full." He led him to the king's palace where all the flour in the whole kingdom was collected, and from it he caused a huge mountain of bread to be baked. The man from the forest stood before it, began to eat, and by the end of one day the whole mountain had vanished. Then Dummling for the 3rd time asked for his bride, but the king again sought a way out, and ordered a ship which could sail on land and on water. "As soon as you come sailing back in it," said he, "you shall have my daughter for wife." Dummling went straight into the forest, and there sat the little grey man to whom he had given his cake. When he heard what Dummling wanted, he said, "Since you have given me to eat and to drink, I will give you the ship, and I do all this because you once were kind to me." Then he gave him the ship which could sail on land and water, and when the king saw that, he could no longer prevent him from having his daughter. The wedding was celebrated, and after the king's death, Dummling inherited his kingdom, and lived for a long time contentedly with his wife. There was a king who had 12 beautiful daughters. They slept in 12 beds all in one room, and when they went to bed the doors were shut and locked up, but every morning their shoes were found to be quite worn through, as if they had been danced in all night, and yet nobody could find out how it happened or where they had been. Then the king made it known to all the land that if any person could discover the secret, and find out where it was that the princesses danced in the night, he should have the one he liked best for his wife, and should be king after his death. But whoever tried and did not succeed, after 3 days and nights should be put to death. A king's son soon came. He was well entertained, and in the evening was taken to the chamber next to the one where the princesses lay in their 12 beds. There he was to sit and watch where they went to dance, and in order that nothing might pass without his hearing it, the door of his chamber was left open. But the king's son soon fell asleep, and when he awoke in the morning he found that the princesses had all been dancing, for the soles of their shoes were full of holes. The same thing happened the second and third night, so the king ordered his head to be cut off. After him came several others, but they had all the same luck, and all lost their lives in the same manner. Now it chanced that an old soldier who had been wounded in battle, and could fight no longer, passed through the country where this king reigned, and as he was traveling through a wood, he met an old woman who asked him where he was going. "I hardly know where I am going or what I had better do," said the soldier, "but I think I should like very well to find out where it is that the princesses dance, and then in time I might be a king." "Well," said the old dame, "that is no very hard task. Only take care not to drink any of the wine which one of the princesses will bring to you in the evening, and as soon as she leaves you pretend to be fast asleep." Then she gave him a cloak, and said, "As soon as you put that on, you will become invisible, and you will then be able to follow the princesses wherever they go." When the soldier heard all this good counsel, he determined to try his luck, so he went to the king, and said he was willing to undertake the task. He was as well received as the others had been, and the king ordered fine royal robes to be given him, and when the evening came he was led to the outer chamber. Just as he was going to lie down, the eldest of the princesses brought him a cup of wine, but the soldier threw it all away secretly, taking care not to drink a drop. Then he laid himself down on his bed, and in a little while began to snore very loud as if he was fast asleep. When the 12 princesses heard this, they laughed heartily, and the eldest said, "This fellow too might have done a wiser thing than lose his life in this way." Then they rose up and opened their drawers and boxes, and took out all their fine clothes, and dressed themselves at the glass, and skipped about as if they were eager to begin dancing. But the youngest said, "I don't know how it is, while you are so happy I feel very uneasy. I am sure some mischance will befall us." "You simpleton," said the eldest, "you are always afraid. Have you forgotten how many kings' sons have already watched in vain? And as for this soldier, even if I had not given him his sleeping draught, he would have slept soundly enough." When they were all ready, they went and looked at the soldier, but he snored on, and did not stir hand or foot, so they thought they were quite safe, and the eldest went up to her own bed, and clapped her hands, and the bed sank into the floor, and a trap-door flew open. The soldier saw them going down through the trap-door one after another, the eldest leading the way, and thinking he had no time to lose he jumped up, put on the cloak which the old woman had given him and followed them. But in the middle of the stairs he trod on the gown of the youngest princess, and she cried out to her sisters, "All is not right. Someone took hold of my gown." "You silly creature," said the eldest, "it is nothing but a nail in the wall." Then down they all went, and at the bottom they found themselves in a most delightful grove of trees, and the leaves were all of silver, and glittered and sparkled beautifully. The soldier wished to take away some token of the place, so he broke off a little branch, and there came a loud noise from the tree. Then the youngest daughter said again, "I am sure all is not right. Did not you hear that noise? That never happened before." But the eldest said, "It is only our princes who are shouting for joy at our approach." Then they came to another grove of trees where all the leaves were of gold, and afterwards to a third, where the leaves were all glittering diamonds, and the soldier broke a branch from each, and every time there was a loud noise which made the youngest sister tremble with fear, but the eldest still said, "It was only the princes who were crying for joy." So they went on till they came to a great lake, and at the side of the lake there lay 12 little boats with 12 handsome princes in them, who seemed to be waiting there for the princesses. One of the princesses went into each boat, and the soldier stepped into the same boat with the youngest. As they were rowing over the lake, the prince who was in the boat with the youngest princess and the soldier said, "I do not know why it is, but though I am rowing with all my might, we do not get on so fast as usual, and I am quite tired. The boat seems very heavy today." "It is only the heat of the weather," said the princess. "I feel it very warm too." On the other side of the lake stood a fine illuminated castle. from which came the merry music of horns and trumpets. There they all landed, and went into the castle, and each prince danced with his princess, and the soldier who was all the time invisible danced with them too. And when any of the princesses had a cup of wine set by her, he drank it all up, so that when she put the cup to her mouth it was empty. At this too the youngest sister was terribly frightened, but the eldest always silenced her. They danced on till 3 o'clock in the morning, and then all their shoes were worn out, so that they were obliged to leave off. The princes rowed them back again over the lake, but this time the soldier placed himself in the boat with the eldest princess, and on the opposite shore they took leave of each other, the princesses promising to come again the next night. When they came to the stairs, the soldier ran on before the princesses and laid himself down, and as the 12 sisters slowly came up very much tired, they heard him snoring in his bed, so they said, "Now all is quite safe." Then they undressed themselves, put away their fine clothes, pulled off their shoes, and went to bed. In the morning the soldier said nothing about what had happened, but determined to see more of this strange adventure, and went again the second and third night. And everything happened just as before. The princesses danced each time till their shoes were worn to pieces, and then returned home. However, on the third night the soldier carried away one of the golden cups as a token of where he had been. As soon as the time came when he was to declare the secret, he was taken before the king with the 3 branches and the golden cup, and the 12 princesses stood listening behind the door to hear what he would say. And when the king asked him, "Where do my 12 daughters dance at night?" he answered, "With 12 princes in a castle underground." And then he told the king all that had happened, and showed him the 3 branches and the golden cup which he had brought with him. Then the king called for the princesses, and asked them whether what the soldier said was true. And when they saw that they were discovered, and that it was of no use to deny what had happened, they confessed it all. And the king asked the soldier which of them he would choose for his wife, and he answered, "I am not very young, so I will have the eldest." And they were married that very day, and the soldier was chosen to be the king's heir. There was once a shoemaker who worked very hard and was very honest, but still he could not earn enough to live upon, and at last all he had in the world was gone, save just leather enough to make 1 pair of shoes. Then he cut his leather out, all ready to make up the next day, meaning to rise early in the morning to his work. His conscience was clear, and his heart light amidst all his troubles, so he went peaceably to bed, left all his cares to heaven, and soon fell asleep. In the morning, after he had said his prayers, he sat himself down to his work, when to his great wonder, there stood the shoes already made upon the table. The good man knew not what to say or think at such an odd thing happening. He looked at the workmanship. There was not 1 false stitch in the whole job. All was so neat and true that it was quite a masterpiece. The same day a customer came in, and the shoes suited him so well that he willingly paid a price higher than usual for them, and the poor shoemaker with the money bought leather enough to make 2 pairs more. In the evening he cut out the work, and went to bed early, that he might get up and begin betimes next day, but he was saved all the trouble, for when he got up in the morning the work was done ready to his hand. Soon in came buyers who paid him handsomely for his goods, so that he bought leather enough for 4 pair more. He cut out the work again overnight, and found it done in the morning as before, and so it went on for some time. What was got ready in the evening was always done by daybreak, and the good man soon became thriving and well off again. One evening about Christmas time, as he and his wife were sitting over the fire chatting together, he said to her, "I should like to sit up and watch tonight, that we may see who it is that comes and does my work for me." The wife liked the thought, so they left a light burning, and hid themselves in a corner of the room behind a curtain that was hung up there, and watched what would happen. As soon as it was midnight, there came in 2 little naked dwarfs, and they sat themselves upon the shoemaker's bench, took up all the work that was cut out, and began to ply with their little fingers, stitching and rapping and tapping away at such a rate, that the shoemaker was all wonder, and could not take his eyes off them. And on they went till the job was quite done, and the shoes stood ready for use upon the table. This was long before daybreak, and then they bustled away as quick as lightning, The next day the wife said to the shoemaker, "These little wights have made us rich, and we ought to be thankful to them, and do them a good turn if we can. I am quite sorry to see them run about as they do, and indeed it is not very decent, for they have nothing upon their backs to keep off the cold. So I'll tell you what, I will make each of them a shirt, and a coat and waistcoat, and a pair of pantaloons into the bargain, and do you make each of them a little pair of shoes." The thought pleased the good cobbler very much, and one evening, when all the things were ready, they laid them on the table, instead of the work that they used to cut out, and then went and hid themselves to watch what the little elves would do. About midnight in they came, dancing and skipping, hopped round the room, and then went to sit down to their work as usual. But when they saw the clothes lying for them, they laughed and chuckled, and seemed mightily delighted. Then they dressed themselves in the twinkling of an eye, and danced and capered and sprang about, as merry as could be, till at last they danced out at the door, and away over the green. The good couple saw them no more, but everything went well with them from that time forward, as long as they lived. A long time ago, there lived a king who was famed for his wisdom through all the land. Nothing was hidden from him, and it seemed as if news of the most secret things was brought to him through the air. But he had a strange custom. Every day after dinner, when the table was cleared and no one else was present, a trusty servant had to bring him one more dish. It was covered, however, and even the servant did not know what was in it. Neither did anyone know, for the king never took off the cover to eat of it until he was quite alone. This had gone on for a long time, when one day the servant who took away the dish was overcome with such curiosity that he could not help carrying the dish into his room. When he had carefully locked the door, he lifted up the cover and saw a white snake lying on the dish. But when he saw it, he could not deny himself the pleasure of tasting it, so he cut off a little bit and put it into his mouth. No sooner had it touched his tongue than he heard a strange whispering of little voices outside his window. He went and listened, and then noticed that it was the sparrows who were chattering together and telling one another of all kinds of things which they had seen in the fields and woods. Eating the snake had given him power of understanding the language of animals. Now it so happened that on this very day the queen lost her most beautiful ring, and suspicion of having stolen it fell upon this trusty servant, who was allowed to go everywhere. The king ordered the man to be brought before him, and threatened with angry words that unless he could before the morrow point out the thief, he himself should be looked upon as guilty and executed. In vain he declared his innocence. He was dismissed with no better answer. The king ordered the man to be brought before him, and threatened with angry words that unless he could before the morrow point out the thief, he himself should be looked upon as guilty and executed. In vain he declared his innocence. He was dismissed with no better answer. In his trouble and fear he went down into the courtyard, and took thought how to help himself out of his trouble. Now some ducks were sitting together quietly by a brook and taking their rest, and whilst they were making their feathers smooth with their bills, they were having a confidential conversation together. The servant stood by and listened. They were telling one another of all the places where they had been waddling about all the morning, and what good food they had found, and one said in a pitiful tone, "Something lies heavy on my stomach. As I was eating in haste, I swallowed a ring which lay under the queen's window." The servant at once seized her by the neck, carried her to the kitchen, and said to the cook, "Here is a fine duck, pray kill her." "Yes," said the cook, and weighed her in his hand. "She has spared no trouble to fatten herself, and has been waiting to be roasted long enough." So he cut off her head, and as she was being dressed for the spit, the queen's ring was found inside her. The servant could now easily prove his innocence, and the king, to make amends for the wrong, allowed him to ask a favor, and promised him the best place in the court that he could wish for. The servant refused everything, and only asked for a horse and some money for traveling, as he had a mind to see the world and go about a little. When his request was granted, he set out on his way, and one day came to a pond, where he saw 3 fishes caught in the reeds, and gasping for water. Now though it is said that fishes are dumb, he heard them lamenting that they must perish so miserably, and as he had a kind heart, he got off his horse, and put the 3 prisoners back into the water. They quivered with delight, put out their heads and cried to him, we will remember you and repay you for saving us." He rode on, and after a while it seemed to him that he heard a voice in the sand at his feet. He listened, and heard an ant king complain, "Why cannot folks with their clumsy beasts keep off our bodies? That stupid horse with his heavy hoofs has been treading down my people without mercy." So he turned onto a side path, and the ant king cried out to him, "We will remember you, one good turn deserves another." The path led him into a wood, and here he saw 2 old ravens standing by their nest, and throwing out their young ones. "Out with you, you idle, good-for-nothing creatures," cried they. "We cannot find food for you any longer. You are big enough and can provide for yourselves." But the poor young ravens lay upon the ground, flapping their wings and crying, "Oh, what helpless chicks we are! We must shift for ourselves, and yet we cannot fly. What can we do but lie here and starve?" So the good young fellow alighted and killed his horse with his sword, and gave it to them for food. Then they came hopping up to it, satisfied their hunger, and cried, "We will remember you, one good turn deserves another." And now he had to use his own legs, and when he had walked a long way, he came to a large city. There was a great noise and crowd in the streets, and a man rode up on horseback, crying aloud, "The king's daughter wants a husband, but whoever sues for her hand must perform a hard task, and if he does not succeed he will forfeit his life." Many had already made the attempt, but in vain. Nevertheless, when the youth saw the king's daughter, he was so overcome by her great beauty that he forgot all danger, went before the king, and declared himself a suitor. So he was led out to the sea, and a gold ring was thrown into it, in his sight. Then the king ordered him to fetch this ring up from the bottom of the sea and added, "If you come up again without it you will be thrown in again and again until you perish amid the waves." All the people grieved for the handsome youth. Then they went away, leaving him alone by the sea. He stood on the shore and considered what he should do, when suddenly he saw 3 fishes come swimming towards him. And they were the very fishes whose lives he had saved. The one in the middle held a mussel in its mouth, which it laid on the shore at the youth's feet, and when he had taken it up and opened it, there lay the gold ring in the shell. Full of joy he took it to the king, and expected that he would grant him the promised reward. But when the proud princess perceived that he was not her equal in birth, she scorned him, and required him first to perform another task. She went down into the garden and strewed with her own hands 10 sacks full of millet seed on the grass. Then she said, "Tomorrow morning before sunrise these must be picked up, and not a single grain be wanting." The youth sat down in the garden, and considered how it might be possible to perform this task, but he could think of nothing, and there he sat sorrowfully awaiting the break of day, when he should be led to death. But as soon as the first rays of the sun shone into the garden, he saw all the 10 sacks standing side by side, quite full, and not a single grain was missing. The ant king had come in the night with thousands and thousands of ants, and the grateful creatures had by great industry picked up all the millet seed and gathered them into the sacks. Presently the king's daughter herself came down into the garden, and was amazed to see that the young man had done the task she had given him. But she could not yet conquer her proud heart, and said, "Although he has performed both the tasks, he shall not be my husband until he has brought me an apple from the tree of life." The youth did not know where the tree of life stood, but he set out, and would have gone on forever, as long as his legs would carry him, though he had no hope of finding it. After he had wandered through 3 kingdoms, he came one evening to a wood, and lay down under a tree to sleep. But he heard a rustling in the branches, and a golden apple fell into his hand. At the same time 3 ravens flew down to him, perched themselves upon his knee, and said, "We are the 3 young ravens whom you saved from starving, when we had grown big, and heard that you were seeking the golden apple. We flew over the sea to the end of the world where the tree of life stands, and have brought you the apple." The youth, full of joy, set out homewards, and took the golden apple to the king's beautiful daughter, who had no more excuses left to make. They cut the apple of life in 2 and ate it together, and then her heart became full of love for him, and they lived in undisturbed happiness to a great age. A certain father had 2 sons. the elder of whom was smart and sensible, and could do everything, but the younger was stupid, and could neither learn nor understand anything, and when people saw him they said, "There's a fellow who will give his father some trouble." When anything had to be done, it was always the elder who was forced to do it, but if his father bade him fetch anything when it was late, or in the night time, and the way led through the churchyard or any other dismal place, he answered, "Oh no, father, I'll not go there, it makes me shudder," for he was afraid. Or when stories were told by the fire at night which made the flesh creep, the listeners sometimes said, "Oh, it makes us shudder." The younger sat in a corner and listened with the rest of them, and could not imagine what they could mean. "They are always saying, 'It makes me shudder, it makes me shudder, it does not make me shudder,'" thought he. "That too must be an art of which I understand nothing." Now it came to pass that his father said to him one day, "Hearken to me, thou fellow in the corner there, thou art growing tall and strong, and thou too must learn something by which thou canst earn thy living. Look how thy brother works, but thou dost not even earn thy salt." "Well, father," he replied, "I am quite willing to learn something. Indeed, if it could but be managed, I should like to learn how to shudder. I don't understand that at all yet." The elder brother smiled when he heard that, and thought to himself, "Good God, what a blockhead that brother of mine is! He will never be good for anything as long as he lives. He who wants to be a sickle must bend himself betimes." The father sighed and answered him, "Thou shalt soon learn what it is to shudder, but thou wilt not earn thy bread by that." Soon after this, the sexton came to the house on a visit, and the father bewailed his trouble, and told him how his younger son was so backward in every respect that he knew nothing, and learnt nothing. "Just think," said he, "when I asked him how he was going to earn his bread, he actually wanted to learn to shudder." "If that be all," replied the sexton, "he can learn that with me. Send him to me, and I will soon polish him." The father was glad to do it, for he thought, "It will train the boy a little." The sexton therefore took him into his house, and he had to ring the bell. After a day or two, the sexton awoke him at midnight, and bade him arise and go up into the church tower and ring the bell. "Who is there?" cried he, but the figure made no reply, and did not move or stir. "Give an answer," cried the boy, "or take thyself off, thou hast no business here at night." The sexton, however, remained standing motionless that the boy might think he was a ghost. The boy cried a second time, "What do you want here? Speak if thou art an honest fellow, or I will throw thee down the steps." The sexton thought, "He can't intend to be as bad as his words," uttered no sound and stood as if he were made of stone. The sexton's wife waited a long time for her husband, but he did not come back. At length she became uneasy and wakened the boy and asked, "Dost thou not know where my husband is? He climbed up the tower before thou didst." "No, I don't know," replied the boy, "but someone was standing by the sounding hole on the other side of the steps, and as he would neither give an answer nor go away, I took him for a scoundrel and threw him downstairs. Just go there and you will see if it was he. I should be sorry if it were." She carried him down, and then with loud screams, she hastened to the boy's father. "Your boy," cried she, "has been the cause of a great misfortune. He has thrown my husband down the steps and made him break his leg. Take the good-for-nothing fellow away from our house." The father was terrified, and ran thither and scolded the boy. "What wicked tricks are these?" said he. "The devil must have put this into thy head." "Father," he replied, "do listen to me. I am quite innocent. He was standing there by night, like one who is intending to do some evil. I did not know who it was, and I entreated him 3 times either to speak or to go away." "Ah," said the father, "I have nothing but unhappiness with you. Go out of my sight, I will see thee no more." "Yes, father, right willingly, wait only until it is day, then will I go forth and learn how to shudder, and then I shall at any rate understand one art which will support me." "Learn what thou wilt," spake the father. "It is all the same to me. Here are 50 thalers for thee. Take these and go into the wide world, and tell no one from whence thou comest, and who is thy father, for I have reason to be ashamed of thee." "Yes, father, it shall be as you will. If you desire nothing more than that, I can easily keep it in mind." When day dawned, therefore, the boy put his 50 thalers into his pocket, and went forth on the great highway, and continually said to himself, "If I could but shudder, if I could but shudder." Then a man approached, who heard this conversation which the youth was holding with himself, and when they had walked a little farther to where they could see the gallows, the man said to him, "Look, there is the tree where 7 men have married the ropemaker's daughter, and are now learning how to fly. Sit down below it, and wait till night comes, and you will soon learn how to shudder. If that is all, that, just come back to me early in the morning." Then the youth went to the gallows, sat down below it, and waited till evening came, and as he was cold, he lighted himself a fire, but at midnight the wind blew so sharply that in spite of his fire, he could not get warm, and as the wind knocked the hanged men against each other and they moved